Welcome, it's Denome, and today's market update is going to be a spicy one. And the fact is, currently we are heading to this decision point for Bitcoin. So when we take a look at the chart here, you can see that we were in a decision point a couple of times before, and we are headed for another decision time. So in this video, we will basically try to answer if this will go to the upside from here, or we will actually have another rejection and maybe we go all the way to 45K. So in this video, we are going to take a look at the news, we're going to take a look at the fundamentals, and obviously we're going to take a look at the charts at the end as well. So first off, let's actually talk about some of the news here, so you are up to date with everything that's going on, or some of the interesting things at least. So first off, Bank of Japan, they says that no more rate hikes and no rate cuts either. So they are not going to flip-flop on their current policy. They are basically just moving forward. So I do expect the Nikkei will continue to crash. That's my expectation. Let's actually take a look at the JPY and USD. This probably had a pullback here and now a bounce. So I don't know what they will do with this one, but I don't think the Nikkei will be doing too well going into the short term. So I think this was a relief rally, and soon we will have another leg down. That's my expectation. Who knows what's going to happen. Next up, JP Morgan, they have actually increased the recession probability to 35% by the end of 2024. And this is a huge risk already. Usually JP Morgan doesn't want to chase away their investors. They want to basically give a confident outlook on the future, but this is not a confident outlook. And also that went up from 25% to 35%. So this is a significant increase in risk or perceived risk. And by the second half of 2025, they expect the recession risk to be already up to 45%. So this recession may come or it may not come, but this will have an effect anyway, and the effect is that people who follow JP Morgan are probably less likely to do speculative trading, speculative investing. Because why would you speculate on risky assets that do extremely well in good times but extremely bad in bad times? Usually this kind of signals like a flight away from speculative assets. So that's my take on this. So that could happen. The obvious other point of view that you could also have is that usually at the very bottom you get the most outlandish, craziest, even cringiest bearish outlooks and targets. So if you are at the bottom of the bear market, people can expect that the bear market will go or double down once again to the downside, or even triple down to the downside. So this could be that as well. So I think this is just a data point for you to think about what maybe the investors think, or at least we may think. But I do have some conflicting data on that when we actually take a look at the fundamentals of Bitcoin. So stay tuned for that section. Next up, XRP, they actually were finally able to settle with SEC. So they were sued for $2 billion. But now they only have to pay 6% of the $2 billion, $125 million. So apparently they are able to sustain this loss and continue operations. And because of this news, you can see that Ripple actually pumped quite hard. I think it was all, I don't know if it was $0.7 in some places at some time, but a significant pump, obviously. So very, very nice if you were an XRP holder. And if XRP has a bounce back, maybe you want to get some XRP because a lot of the FUD has now cleared. And they have a new financial officer that they hired from Amazon as well. So just throwing it out there. Next, we do start to see a little bit of money printing from the US Treasury. So all in all, when you go and take a look at the actual website, the treasury.gov file here, you can see some buybacks for treasuries. So here you can see 4 billion, 2 billion, 500 million, 2 billion, 4 billion. And when you calculate all of these things together, you are seeing basically buybacks on a weekly basis or even more often than that. And this totals a $46 billion, which is significant amount of buybacks. It may be able to sustain the market stocks relatively stable until the end of elections. Maybe. I don't know for 100% certainty, but I think that's what they are trying to do, to not shake the markets before the elections. So this ends by the end of October, this buyback program. So that's happening there. Maybe we'll get a relief rally from this, who knows. Next, we did get a comment from $13 billion Cantor Fitzgerald analyst, and they say that they believe this is an opportune time to actually add exposure to Bitcoin ahead what could be outsized returns over the coming year. So by 2025 or by the end of 2025, they expect Bitcoin to do outsized returns, which is quite nice. Maybe they already bought Bitcoin or they are buying Bitcoin. I don't know which one, but this is a nice comment from there. Next up, let's take a look at Ethereum first. So Ethereum ETFs. So we do have a lot of net flows into ETFs. Unfortunately, I've started to notice when I use this Dune tool here that these numbers are completely false most of the time. So these keep changing on a daily basis, and especially the last, let's say, 3 days, the numbers keep flip-flopping, and I don't like that. So the last 3 days we cannot really count into the equation. As you can see outflows in grayscale on August 5th, but there are zero outflows on August 6th and 7th. So a lot of this data comes in late. And as you can see, even on August 5th, there's a bunch of zero numbers here. And even August 2nd, you can see zeros here. So it's quite hard to actually take these numbers at face values because these keep changing all the time. So we don't have the full data available for us. But what we can see is that at least the outflows are diminishing for Ethereum ETFs, and we are seeing that the demand on ETF buying side maybe is roughly stable, could be, I don't know. So I think the trend is changing, that this is starting to become accumulation rather than distribution of Ethereum. Maybe not, maybe yes. That's my take on that. On the Bitcoin ETFs, we saw a little bit of buying yesterday, so $45 million, sorry. So this is a trend shift from ETF outflows and inflows. So this is quite nice to see that at least the ETF people stopped selling for now. Next up, we can finally start talking about the fundamentals, and boy, do I have good news for you on that front. So when I take a look at, first of all, the Bitcoin 1 year inactive supply. So this is tracking how much of the Bitcoin supply hasn't been moved for over a year. So when this is very, very high, it means that people are accumulating Bitcoin. When this is going down, it means that old money is basically selling Bitcoin. And during this consolidation time, you are not seeing old money selling Bitcoin. And even at this dip here, we are still not seeing a lot of selling of Bitcoin. So this means that old money is pretty much done selling. They don't want to sell. We are seeing, yes, an increasing amount of selling here, but this is not showing me any kind of panic or massive amounts of selling like we saw during this time here. So I think a lot of people are flipping into accumulation mode. That's what it looks like to me. And I have a lot of data that also suggests the same thing. So first off, let's talk about the exchange inflow into Coinbase Prime, which is where basically whales sell their Bitcoin with OTC trades. This is not a lot of selling during this dump here. Compared to, let's say, this time here, we saw a lot of selling through the Coinbase Prime, but this is just a typical day. People did not want to deposit their Bitcoin into the Coinbase accounts and sell their Bitcoin. This is very, very, very nice to see. And even during this pump or bounce back, we're still not seeing crazy numbers of Bitcoin flowing into the Coinbase Prime, which is very nice to see. Also, when we take a look at inflows into accumulation addresses, so these are Bitcoin addresses that have zero outflows. On 6th of August, we saw 38,000 Bitcoin go into these accumulation addresses. And August 5th, we saw 39,000 Bitcoin enter these accumulation addresses. So a lot of people are just buying Bitcoin off the market, and there's a lot of institutional demand, whale demand at these price levels right now. So yes, Bitcoin may crash, but a lot of people are hella like super bullish on Bitcoin. So even though it looks scary on the headlines, these people don't give a fuck. They want to buy Bitcoin at these price levels. I can also confirm that when I go to Santiment, and Santiment is a tool where you can also create a free account like you can do on CryptoQuant. There's a link in the description for both of these tools. The data is a little bit limited on the free accounts, but you can still create the account and do your own dashboards and all these things. I may make a video about Santiment in the nearby future, and I just did an interview with a member from Santiment team, Brian, that will be out on YouTube in a couple of days, I think. Anyway, there's a couple of interesting things here. First off, the MVRV ratio flipped negative and now is flipping bullish to the positive again. And this typically, it can go a lot into the negative zone in a bear market, but in a bull market, this is typically a bounce back zone basically. So it could go either way, but in a bull, if this is still a bull market, this would be the time to basically call the bottom. Next up, when we take a look at supply on exchanges, this keeps continuing to go down, which signals that people want to take the Bitcoin out of exchanges and put it into their private wallets. So this is signaling long-term demand for Bitcoin. Then we had another short-term signal, which is the Binance funding rate. And typically when this goes to the negative zone, that is the area where we will have a bounce. Obviously, again, in a bear market, this can go significantly more to the downside. But when we see a red print here in a bull market, that is a local bottom. Next up, we can see more money printing on the stablecoin front. So we almost got $155 billion of these major stablecoins in their market cap, and this is another all-time high in stablecoin market cap. So obviously very nice to see that people want to transact over the blockchain, and the demand for stablecoins is growing as well. Then something interesting here on when we take a look at Bitcoin holders, different brackets of holders. The most interesting here is this blue line. So during this dip here, these whales that have 100 to 1000 Bitcoin, they bought a bunch of Bitcoin during this time. So the amount of wallets in this bracket was 13,819. And it increased by 100 wallets. So this was a lot of buying from these whales. At the same time, we are seeing this orange line, which is retail investors basically panicking and selling their Bitcoin at this bottom, kind of signaling that the money is moving from, let's call it dumb money to smart money, from retail investors to whales. That was the difference there. At the same time, when we don't look at the number of holders, but we take a look at how much money is in these different brackets, we are seeing that even though some retail investors were selling, the amount of the supply percentage in 0 to 1 Bitcoin wallets has actually increased during this time. So even though some retail investors were selling, some retail investors were buying this dip here once again. At the same time, the amount of Bitcoin held by wallets that have 1 to 100 Bitcoin, these were increasing as well, even at the bottom here, as well as when we take a look at that 100 to 1000 Bitcoin bracket, that had a significant increase during this dump. And these guys, at least as of now, are not selling except for this small blip here at the end. But a lot of buying here at these price levels once again. Next up, when we take a look at supply held by miners, I know this is a lot of information, but miners were actually selling this dump here. It's quite interesting that they bought the top here and now they sold it, and it looks like we are heading for that local low as well. So some retail investors were selling, some miners were selling this drop here as well. But all in all, pretty much everyone else have been accumulating Bitcoin. Next up, when we take a look at old money, so money that hasn't been moved for over a year or money that hasn't been moved for over 3 years, we are not seeing from this bounce back, we are not seeing any selling either. At the bottom, we saw a little bit of old money selling Bitcoin or trading or sending Bitcoin to somewhere, but not a huge spike. So people are not panicking. And right now, even from the bounce back, you would expect smart money to wait for the bounce back. And at the bounce back, they start selling Bitcoin. So at least as of now, making this video, old money is still not selling Bitcoin. Again, signaling accumulation of Bitcoin. Unfortunately, what we do see is when we take a look at Ethereum, old money is selling Ethereum. So from my previous video, I said that Ethereum is probably going to be more interesting than Bitcoin. Now I'm getting the opposite signal here, and it seems to me that Bitcoin is going to be the outperforming asset in the short term continuously. So old money, a huge spike here for 3 consecutive days that old money were selling Ethereum. And at the same time, when we take a look at retail investors or the amount of Ethereum wallets that have some amounts of Ethereum in them, this has pretty much flatlined here as well. So not a lot of demand from retail investors and sell pressure from old Ethereum holders. This is obviously not great for Ethereum, and this is probably going to be the same case for altcoins as well. So Bitcoin seems to be the best asset out of crypto right now, in my opinion, as it looks from the data. So obviously this data doesn't mean that it is a 100% guarantee that Bitcoin will outperform Ethereum or altcoins, but as I'm looking this data, it just like screams to me that Bitcoin is still the best asset on the market. Next, when we take a look at Nasdaq, not banana stack, let's go to Nasdaq. Here on the futures, we got that rejection from this trend line. So this is, in my opinion, in the bear zone. So even though we're getting the money printing, Nasdaq is going down. So it could hover here for a while or trend to the downside. But for Bitcoin people, it seems like people are still buying Bitcoin regardless. And the price of Bitcoin may go down, it may go up, but people just want to accumulate Bitcoin. So the couple of scenarios that we have here, first off, when we just take a look at the trend lines here that I have drawn, we saw the first touch at this top here, then we saw a second touch, and the third touch, we had a serious reaction to the downside. The next time it happened here in June. First time we touched at the top here, second time we touched this trend line, the third time we touched, again, a serious reaction to the downside. Now we have a similar situation. First touch, second touch, and soon we will have the third touch. Will we have a strong reaction to the downside? If we do, price will go to like 45K. And that would be the this trend line here, and that will be probably the absolute bottom for Bitcoin if price would go there. But as we see from all of the accumulation, Bitcoin might just go above here as well. But for me personally, I do have a lot of buy orders here at 52K, 49K, 47K, and 45K. A lot of buy orders ready. If we go above here, then we might not go to the bottom line here anymore. We will not see 47K, 48K, 49K. So I will cancel my orders if we just go past here, and then I will be making my buy orders basically right about here. I will make a market order, and then I'll have a bunch of orders basically all the way down to 51K. That's my current take on Bitcoin price. But all in all, long term, it seems like Bitcoin is quite bullish. So just wanted to throw you guys this bone here right now that Bitcoin seems to be outperforming altcoins. For LDO, I talked about it in the previous video. Unfortunately, this does follow Ethereum. So if Ethereum is not doing good, then LDO is probably not doing great either. So unfortunately, altcoins is still not their time yet for altcoins. Maybe it will be sometime in the short term, but at least as of now, not yet. So LDO might still go down here. I actually bought more LDO regardless today, and I will be buying more if this continues to go down, because I just see a lot of good potential here. Even though some whales are selling their Ethereum here at these price levels, I think LDO is massively undervalued. And when we go and take a look at the long-term value of LDO, you can see that this was the absolute bottom here, 0.88, and we went and touched that bottom already. So if LDO continues to go down, I will be buying more LDO. That's just my take. I'm so bullish on this asset, but unfortunately it follows Ethereum, so it could even go further down, but it is the case, and that's my take as well on that. Anyway, that's pretty much everything I had for today's video. So bullish on Bitcoin, but some caution in the market, obviously. But as of now, it looks like we may be out of serious market crashes. I think the biggest shock is behind us. We may start trending to the downside, unfortunately, but at least Bitcoin seems to be good. Even if it starts trending to the downside, we will be tracking, we will see more accumulation most likely. That is the trend. So eventually it will turn around and we get all of the bullishness. So that's all I had for today's video. If you like this content, consider subscribing and liking the video, and I will see you on the next one. Bye bye.